Right, you come to these sessions with the humility of there's certain spaces that are in the space that I don't know. So who can name me, and I will buy you the first drink of your choice at the cocktails this evening, which is just on the pool deck, which is around past the restaurant. What state in the United States has 47% of the data centers? Who said that? A drink on me. Thank you very, very much. All right. I was going to exclude you from the next questions because you're going to show me up. But let's talk about hyperscalers. Let's talk about, it's not a fad, it's a thing. The data that we're sitting and consuming, even my funny, I think it's a Samsung A30 something. If you've got a teenager in your house, you know you can't have a cool phone because it's going to get ganked, it's going to get nipped, and they're going to go take the nice pictures. So I keep a very modest $100 phone. But the computing power on my phone is more than the computing power that was used to get the man on the moon. Think about that. And that's in our hands, live and direct. But to go behind the fabric and the gigs and the bytes and the doo-has and the hee-hee-hees, we're going to have the flight to quality, the hyperscaler influence, how tech giants are rewiring real estate. I'm going to have a panel led by Marjorie, and then I'm going to call on her panelists, Snehar, Ranee, Fahm, and Osvaldo, to take us into the world of tech, I hope in a language that you and I understand, because my Klingon and Kling sucks.
I'm joined by a stellar panel that will help us understand the world of where we are right now and how it intersects with the real estate industry and the infrastructure that supports data centers. Glad to have a very brilliant panel. We have a real estate developer, we have a real estate consultant, and we have a telecoms expert, and actually somebody who's building data centers. So this is a great panel. Let's give them a round of applause as we start. So I'll ask them to just introduce themselves and say what they do and what they're contributing to the day-to-day ecosystem of data centers. We'll start with Ranee, the lady.
Testing, testing.
Thank you. Thanks, Marjorie. So my name's Ranee Nanji. I'm the executive director at Tilisi. And Tilisi, if you don't know us, we're a 400-acre mixed-use development. What we do really, what's our product? Our product really is infrastructure. That's what we do. We service the plots so that each use is a plug-and-play solution. And now I'm glad to say that we're also plug-and-play for hyperscalers. So that's us.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Fahm Bekele. I've had a background in core technology, someone who's worked in a data center, switching off these servers and putting them on. I've also worked in real estate for about 10 years as a project manager and development manager, helping various people with advice on real estate. And then I'm currently building a web platform that is also real estate based, a prop tech. And I would probably be one of the people looking for local compute that's coming to these, by bringing these hyperscalers here. So that will be my angle. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Osvaldo Coelho. My background is in telecoms. And I'm a consultant based in Nairobi on digital infrastructure. Includes renewable energy, fiber optics, and data centers as well.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Snehar Shah. I've been working in the tech field for the last couple of decades, so I've been privileged to have worked through the whole tech ecosystem, also starting my career in telecoms. Now I've done telecom towers infrastructure, renewable energy, and currently I wear two hats. My day job is building a data center. And I'm really glad that everyone here understands all these acronyms in our field, so hyperscalers, and we'll explore a bit more what they're about because I'm working with them very closely. And my passion is actually in education, where I've been building the tech talent workforce for Africa, having run Moringa School, where we're the market leader in training software developers and data scientists.
Okay, great. And I'm Marjorie Kivuva. I'm a real estate lawyer. I assist clients in the real estate sector. I've been seeing residential, commercial, hospitality builds, but this is a new one in the market, and it's a new one for everybody, so it's good for us to understand what does this mean and where are we going? What is it in it for investors and professional advisors? So I'll start with Osvaldo because he can give us a definition of what a hyperscaler is and help us understand what do data centers do, how do they play into the digital infrastructure, and what are the elements for building a successful data center?
Starting with the hyperscale name, we need to go back where we started with enterprise data center that it was on the premises. And once that infrastructure grew bigger, it was sent to specialized facilities called colocation. Once that thing got to capacity, we went to a much higher scale. Like this gentleman here built the first hyperscale in Nairobi. So it's basically a term that differentiates several sizes of data centers. Here in Nairobi, we are basically the edge. That means the big data volumes, those big workloads, they overflow in this region. And that we have to add the growth of the local data operators and the neighborhood that are the landlocked countries. And we are expecting that owing to the geographical position that we are going to be another data hub probably in the 5 to 6 years, because we are between the South African hub and the GCC hub. So we will be establishing a data hub here in Nairobi.
Okay. Ranee, you are in the real estate space and has built Tilisi. Tell us, what is your perspective on how this changes the definition of prime real estate?
Thanks. So prime real estate, as we knew it, or at least when we started Tilisi, was, the penthouse, the house with the views, the corner office. Data centers means that prime real estate has completely changed, right? It is increasingly access to significant power and fiber connectivity. And if you have those two things, the price you can ask for your land is much more than potentially your 1 acre in Upper Hill. So I do think that you should be basically, hyperscalers or big data centers would look at things outside the city. So prime real estate in this case would not necessarily be middle of CBD or Upper Hill. In this case, it would be on the outskirts because you have the ability to plan the infrastructure beforehand and get the power in there that the data centers need. So I think that makes you rethink what prime real estate means. And it does mean that developers who have land on the outskirts of cities should look at this as a potential for a new asset class.
Okay. As you're speaking, I was thinking about the Microsoft G42 deal, which is located in Olkaria. A data center is meant to be built there by Microsoft. So maybe that's an interesting view of how prime real estate is changing. Olkaria may be the next prime real estate, yeah? Snehar, let me come to you because you're walking the talk. You're building the data centers. Tell us, what is it like? Because I hear it's very unique structures. You need very unique power generation and cooling systems. Tell us what's that like, building a data center in Kenya?
Yeah, thanks, Marjorie. So first of all, I think there's a difference between people who announce they're going to make data centers and people who actually make data centers. And I'm glad to say we are the latter. And a couple of years ago when they announced this big Olkaria thing and all, we being experts in the field, we were baffled, totally baffled. And I think what's happening now, I think I can say I told you so. So yeah, there's a lot of noise in the market, and when it comes to building data centers, there are various factors at play. You do not need to be close to the source of power. You don't need to be Olkaria. In fact, I understand that Hyperscaler, they announced and later they sent their engineers to Olkaria and they found that it's a seismic zone, and even for us. So we've got currently the largest facility actually in Nairobi, very close to the airport next to Cabanas. And when we started building, the first thing that our potential off-takers, so the likes of AWS, Microsoft, Google, Oracle, the first thing they asked for is the seismic survey. And Nairobi, where we are, it's pretty good location. Then the second factor is security. So we are in the airport perimeter, so we have very high level of security. Third is connectivity, and where we are located, right off the Mombasa Road. That's where the submarine cables are passing from Mombasa going to Malaba. So we have different diverse routes of fiber, and we are what we call a carrier-neutral data center. And then yes, there is power, and where we're located, we currently have two independent 11,000 volt lines coming into our data center, very stable, because one of the lines, they also serve the dry port, the other one to Embakasi. And on average, since we went live over the last couple of years, we've had less than 8 hours a month of downtime. Of course, we have all the backup in terms of generators, etc. And then we've identified our second site, and I'm glad to say we're working together with Tilisi as our second site, which is around 40 kilometers from our current site. And when these hyperscalers come to bring the cloud into the market, they'll typically look for 3 locations, which are within around 30 to 50 kilometers distance in terms of redundancy. And then the last point is accessibility. We have this big IT city called Konza, which is about 80 kilometers away, but it's not that favorable because people don't want to go that far. So when the engineers and the clients come, they want that accessibility. So it's all those factors that combine to choose a prime location for data centers.
Okay, thank you. Fahm, let me come to you. You're a real estate consultant. Some financial analysts have questioned the sustainability of the global AI infrastructure build-out. They say revenues aren't matching the spend, and some are calling it a bubble. Is this a bubble? How should investors diversify to ensure their businesses aren't overexposed if a correction comes, when it comes?
Yeah, I think it's, there's a lot of financial analysts who've mentioned this just because the way the money is moving amongst some of the biggest players, it's circling amongst the same people. So the danger of a bubble is something everyone should think about. And I think if you are looking to mitigate some risk and you're building a data center in Kenya, you're looking for different types of clients, not AI focused. You're looking more for the traditional cloud computing, which is growing all the time. All the big local banks and corporations need it as they grow. So that is more of a fixed demand that is safer. So it's more of when you're sizing these data centers, you have to think about what percentage am I thinking of putting for AI alone, and taking into account that risk that some of that might not materialize soon. And if a bubble bursts, what happens is 10 players become 3. So the demand might not be as quick. So I think that's the best way to mitigate is to try to diversify the type of clientele who would want space in your data server.
Okay, so the big hyperscalers and mix with a smaller player in the market, would you call Safaricom a big player or a small player? And Microsoft, a big player or small player? For us to have an idea what you're talking about.
To be honest, I think Microsoft is a huge player, right? Globally massive.
Yeah.
Safaricom in Africa is quite big. But even in terms of payments on the continent, there are people doing bigger payments than Safaricom. So they're huge, they're massive in Kenya, big in Africa, but globally, Microsoft is on a different solar system.
Okay, Osvaldo, I'll come to you next. I've just read today's paper, and it's saying we have 19 data centers in Kenya, and 15 of them are in Nairobi. How many more data centers do you think, or as per your telecommunications engineering background, do you think we need in the next 5 years?
If we go back a little bit and then we see how this thing is growing. In early 2023, we had here in Nairobi 17.6 megawatt. And the specialists we are saying that we are going to need 31 megawatt by 2027. And this is happening, we have about 25 megawatt now in Nairobi with a pipeline of 150 megawatt. So it's basically, we look who is going to take a share of this 150 megawatt. Like Snehar said, they are going to work with Tilisi to build a new data center there. Safaricom will take, obviously, because of mobile data. Airtel will take a share of it. And there is, within this 150 megawatt projected, new players will come and seize the opportunity, right? Because the ones we will scale up and some will come and establish themselves new here.
Okay, thank you. So there's an opportunity, and I'd like Snehar to just give us a snapshot about what do you think is driving the demand, and what is the market looking like now and in the future for these data centers?
Yeah, I think Osvaldo is looking at it in the right way in terms of measuring the demand. The number of data centers is, in my view, a wrong metric because out of the 19 data centers, they're probably counting the server rooms in the basement of a building and all. Those are not proper data centers. So instead, we measure the size of data centers by looking at the power that they consume. And of course, what we're seeing in the US and Asia, huge investments, gigawatts of data centers being built, but largely for the AI model training and all that. We're not going to see those kind of workloads come here anytime soon. But instead, we'll be key users. So inference for AI will be key for us. And the lead indicator that we have on the continent is really South Africa, where South Africa is roughly similar size population to Kenya. They're 4 times the GDP of Kenya, but today they have something like 500 megawatts of data centers that have been built. Whereas in Kenya, the current built and utilized capacity is actually around 10 megawatts, including ourselves. So the gap is so huge. So which poses an opportunity for all of us. And we're not going to see those gigawatt data centers built here anytime soon, but we will be taking baby steps. And what we've done with Oracle, for example, we're the first to bring Oracle as a hyperscaler into the market, where actually government is walking the talk. They're leading by example. They're going to be moving a lot of their workloads from central bank, from national treasury, onto our data center with Oracle. And on the back of that, we would see a lot of the private sector markets follow. So, banks, fintechs, etc. And, based on that, there is now confidence in the market compared to those crazy announcements that there is, real action on the ground. And then on the back of that, we should see the Microsofts, the AWS and all follow, but with a phased growth, if you like. So seeing close to 100 megawatts being utilized in the next, say, 3 to 5 years could become a reality.
Okay, quite exciting, I must say. Ranee, tell us, there are many people who own pieces of land. Africans, we like to own land as a major asset. Tell us, what do developers need to do to actually attract this kind of investments? And where do you think most developments are falling short?
Yeah, I think particularly for this type of asset class, you need to start thinking not as a land seller, but an infrastructure provider. You have to change the mindset. I'll give you an example. In the old days, you would see a piece of land and someone would say, yeah, this is a piece of land, I could buy it. And they'd ask you, well, what about power? And I was like, oh, well, there's a power line kind of just here. And that's how you would look at a piece of land. You wouldn't actually service it. You wouldn't really even understand whether there is power going through it. Power at Tilisi, power is by far the most complex and most capital intensive investment we've done. And that's without the hyperscaler. With the hyperscaler, there's an add-on. So as you look at your land and you want to make it ready for data centers, you have to have it infrastructure ready. And that's power, that's water, there's security that Snehar mentioned, really important. And you have to look at it as infrastructure. You're selling infrastructure rather than just selling land. I think that's really important.
Thank you. Let me go to Fahm now. What do you think about the power question with the announcements by EPRA today? We've seen it in the papers, in Business Daily, that they will be opening up the monopoly, the Kenya power monopoly, to allow large-scale power producers sell to large-scale consumers. How will it affect the data center and ecosystem?
I think for anyone who's planning to come in and do a large data center, that announcement creates a large opportunity because now you can have direct conversations and negotiations by taking one piece out of that stage of Kenya Power. You're pulling Kenya Power out and speaking straight to the generator. So you should be able to get better rates. I think it's positive. There are some people, I think the World Bank has said it's cautious about that because it sees a scenario where the average price could jump through competition. So it's something that needs to be introduced, but with some guardrails. But for anyone who's not only data centers, but anyone who wants to do a major plant, this opens up a new avenue for you because Kenya Power, in terms of distribution, has had challenges in terms of keeping up with the demand, and there's a lot of delays. I think even KenGen has looked into distributing power themselves without Kenya Power. So I think there's a bottleneck there. Removing it is opening up an opportunity, in my opinion.
Okay, we've talked about the infrastructure, the power, the water. Let me come to policy issues, Snehar. Do you think we have enough policies to stimulate data centers in Kenya?
Yeah, so just first of all on the power point, and policy relating to power is of course important. But more than the cost, it is the availability and the reliability of power that is key. And if we want to make Kenya a key destination for data centers, we need to make sure that the power generation is leading, with that, and of course utilize all the natural resources we have, like geothermal, etc. And in fact, we've done some work with McKinsey because there is a tech steerco that we sit on, and they've analyzed that when you look at the TCO of a data center, then the power cost only contributes something like 5% of the total cost. What is more important is the right favorable policies and say tax incentives for importing the very now more and more expensive servers and the GPUs, etc. So that's one area where we need to make sure the policy is right. But on the positive side, Kenya, the reason why we are known as the Silicon Savannah, the reason why M-Pesa and mobile money was successful was because the central bank, for example, they put in place the right pragmatic policies in place. And in terms of data protection, so Kenya was one of the first African countries to put in place in 2019 our data protection regulation, which is mirrored on the European GDPR. And the great thing is our neighboring countries and rest of Africa is also mirroring that as well. So there's commonality in terms of our regulation, and thanks to that regulation, we need to make sure that our citizens' data, the sensitive data of financial, health, government is protected here locally. So that also makes a case for having data centers in place here. There's one area we're currently battling where the telecoms regulator has suddenly woken up, and they're trying to regulate our sector, which is pretty much, I would call it prime or souped up real estate. So they've just seen an avenue to try and tax people like us, and I think that's going to potentially block investment. So I think, yeah, we have a mixed bag in terms of policy, and this is something that we need to work through.
Okay, in terms of tax incentives, you should see me on the side. Ranee, we'd like to close the panel now, and I'd like some closing remarks from you. When we sit on a panel like this, we are now in 2026, and we can project to 2025. Do you think we can say that we have fully seized the window as the East African region to build the infrastructure and to build data centers?
I think we can always do better, right? I think we have an immense opportunity here in Kenya, knowing what's going on in the Middle East, knowing that there are data centers, huge data centers still probably in planning and probably been aborted or whatever it is, we have an absolute huge, immense opportunity to take some of that business, right? And I think that we need to get ready. I think the government needs to get ready. I think we talk about, we have 92% of our power is renewable. That already in itself is amazing. We need to get transmission into the places we need it, and we need to get going, and we need to have land where infrastructure is ready, and we need the help of government really to get it there, right? So I think we have a huge opportunity. I think if we all get together, I think we can do it, but we need like the policies, etc., to make sure that it can happen. And we need to take that opportunity now, otherwise it'll go somewhere else.
Okay, great. I think some government officials should have been in this room to listen to this. Fahm?
Maybe just to piggyback on that, I think the time is now. If you look at the current global situation, the Straits, the countries that have been bombed, including Dubai, and I do believe there are some data centers that were affected, the Red Sea through the Houthi rebels. There are people who are looking and saying, I need a new location for data centers. Kenya has the cables. Apart from everything else guys have said, there's also the altitude, the cooler temperature, and the thinking, the DIY thinking, building for the environment that IX Africa has done splendidly in terms of smarter ways to cool that are environmentally friendly. So I think now is the time. So if the government can build the power capacity and put these policies that allow for these things to happen quickly, we could be at the forefront.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah, I look at the medium term will be more of the same. When I built a project for Safaricom 13 years ago, and when we built fiber, we are talking about fiber to the building, fiber to the home, and 4G spectrum that Safaricom was buying, and we never considered 13 years ago about fiber for connectivity for data centers. And out of the blue, in 10 years' time, we are here. The power situation, in 2014, Kenya had 1,800 megawatt of power generation. In 2023, that went to 3,312, and it's projected to go to 5,000 megawatt by 2030. So things are moving, and the data center sector is moving along business as usual, irrespective what happens in the Middle East or South Africa or with the AI story in the US.
Yeah, for me, I mean, so mentioning the telcos like Safaricom, Airtel, first of all, they are biased. They're not carrier neutral. And if you look at the developed markets, nowhere you're seeing like a telco leading the data center sector. So they'll have some data centers like Safaricom has, for example, for M-Pesa. They're building new infrastructure and they can't keep up. And in fact, the current data centers are full with the M-Pesa workloads. So that's why we are partnering with them. They're outsourcing all the spillover, so all the enterprise workloads are coming to our data center. But in the midterm, say by 2030, if we can be where South Africa is today, I think that will be success. But remember, South Africa has some disadvantages. I mean, we've heard about their power blackouts. Their cost of power is expensive. They use fossil fuels. As Ranee said, we have 90% plus renewable power generation. So we have a huge opportunity in front of us.
And local skilled labor.
And of course, local skilled labor. So yeah, if by 2030 we can surpass where South Africa is, that'll be success.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you all for listening to our tech and real estate panel. And I hope you've learned something new. And for investors, there's an opportunity for you to invest in these data centers. We have local skilled labor, we have natural resources, power and water, and we have lots of land. Thank you.
Thank you.